Well,
Hi, everybody.
we're live. I can hear myself on the monitor.
All right. Well, that's great. Well, welcome, everybody. My name is Chris Skirto, and welcome you today to the webinar and on the phased approach to video over IP transition using an HDbridge3000. You know, we thank you for giving us this time. We know time's the one resource we all have that we never get back once we spend it. So we are confident this will not only be valuable to you, but we also intend to be sticking to our schedule and not wasting your time. So a couple housekeeping things. One, this webinar is going to be recorded. It will be up on our YouTube channel within a couple days. So if, once you get done with this and you go, hey, that was really good, I know that Steve and Bob and Mary could benefit by it. It'll be there for them to view at their leisure. Also, we love it when you ask questions because it not only does it make us think a little bit more, it keeps it a little livelier and a little more fresh. So if you look in your GoToWebinar control panel, there's a place where you can ask questions. Love it if, as you're thinking of them, you type them in and we will field them as they come in. We will also have time at the end of this whole thing to talk a little bit more about and answer your questions. So, and Roy and I tend to stick around till we've answered the very last question. So appreciate your time, and please do ask questions because we appreciate that and it makes it a little livelier for us. So on the call with me today, well, I guess I should introduce myself. I am Chris Skirto. I'm the Vice President of Business Development and Marketing for ZeeVee. I've been with the company a little over 6 years now, and it's been a heck of a 6 years. It's been nonstop, lots of energy in this company, and lots of, I think, great ideas coming out of our customers that we're actually able to make actionable for them. Joining me on the phone is Roy Bertolato. Roy has 8 years invested into ZeeVee in terms of his time. He was very, very early on to join the company and has had a bunch of different roles, and I think most of you know Roy. And having Roy on the phone today is obviously quite a treat for all of us because he's not only got great experience, he's got great stories to go with that experience. So let's talk a little bit about why we're here. I think at ZeeVee we always talk about trying to make the most of everybody's business and how do our products help people be more successful and be more profitable as a business. Our customers, honestly, is who we're trying to make more profitable. We kind of have a saying within our company that until our integrators and our customers sell or buy something, we don't make a thing. So for us, it's all about communicating with you, trying to get you more knowledgeable about our products and also give you the tools you need to sell our products and sell your own products that dovetail with ours. We are but a small piece of the total chain, and we get that. So today we're going to talk a little bit about using the HDbridge3000 to support the needs of end users today and helping do that transition and talk about where this product will be able to take your customers in the future. We hope you can gain some product knowledge and an understanding of real-world applications, where we are seeing this being used and how it's being used, and hopefully that spurs some ideas in you and, oh, hey, I could do that, or I know somebody who needs something similar to that in terms of an application. So that's really where we're going. I'm looking down the list of who's here, and I'm seeing people all over the world, which is amazing. I'm seeing people in Europe right now, which, good evening to you. I'm glad you're here. For those of you, I see a lot of names I know, but there's some here I don't recognize. So I'm going to talk just briefly about who ZeeVee is. We are a leader in the distribution of AV utilizing any wired infrastructure. And we don't care if it's category cabling, we don't care if it's coax, we don't care if it's fiber. We have products that cover those distribution mechanisms and help you get AV onto those various networks. We've been doing this for 10 years. We have sold product on 5 continents now. We're connected to well over 1 million screens, and honestly, I think probably in the next couple of weeks we're going to probably surpass 2 million screens, so we'll have to update this. We are absolutely fanatical about image quality. When you look at our 720p products, or you look at our 1080p products, or you look at our 4K products, we are so focused on picture quality, it almost gets us in trouble sometimes because you watch how our engineers watch TV, and it's very different than how most of us do, but you need to know that. The other thing is we cut our teeth and earned our stripes, if you will, by making this easy to do, easy to deploy, easy to manage, and very reliable. Those are the 3 keys to they have been the 3 keys to our success. So we're also a founding member of SDVoE, which is the software-defined video over Ethernet, which is this whole movement to move away from proprietary switches and proprietary equipment and move into a much more Ethernet-based, IP-centric architecture. And that's, we were one of the founding members of SDVOE. We've been working on that solution for well over 4 years now, and in fact, are on our 3rd generation of product. So, we've been at this game for a while. I notice every show, more and more people keep popping up the shingle that they're AV over IP. We were one of the first, and we have the wounds to show for it. But, with those wounds comes an awful lot of experience and knowledge that we think our customers benefit from. So here's just a smattering of who we work with. When you start to look at, there are some very, very big names, and we have, like I said, installations all over the world, from Formula One racing to one of our latest installs was an install we just completed in Scotland. The oldest football club in Scotland is using our equipment to move their video content. I would also point out the NTNU up there, Norwegian University. There are some great case studies and some great articles written about exactly how that university is using some of our products to benefit and make their students, make the education experience much more robust and much more worthwhile. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Roy for a second and let him talk about how we have you covered.
So, first of all, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. So what does it mean ZeeVee has you covered? Well, what it means is that we've got you covered no matter what the source and no matter what the transmission architecture is, no matter what the facility has for wire, so to speak. Let's talk about the products just for a second. ZeeVee Pro is our smaller form factor products, usually used in very low channel count installations, mostly digital signage, a doctor's office, a beauty parlor, 1 or 2 channels of information they want to send to a whole bunch of televisions. You'd use ZeeVee Pro. The HDbridge3000 is still our bread and butter. I get asked a lot now that we have the 3000 product, what's going to happen to the 2000? 2000 is not going anywhere. It is still the mainstay of our company. The 2000 product is usually used when you have 12 channels or less, somewhere around 12 channels or less. Therefore, it's used a lot in sports bars, health clubs, and that type of situation where they're only sending 8, 12, sometimes 16 channels. The HDbridge3000, that's our new product, and obviously that's what this webinar is all about. That's our new card-based chassis system, and Chris is going to spend some time talking about that in a few minutes. And now we have our IP products. And our IP products go from our basic RF products, like the ZeeVee Pro and the HDbridge3000, which can also simultaneously transmit IP, to the new MX, which is our MPEG-4 product. And then we have our Zyper HD, UHD, and 4K products. So we've got it covered from 480 SD all the way to 4K using any type of transmission. Coax, Cat5, Cat6, fiber, we got you covered.
Great, so that leads us to our first poll question, and I'm going to launch it, and we'd love you to answer a couple questions for us, and you have to bear with me because for whatever reason, PowerPoint and GoToWebinar don't work that well together. So the question really revolves around how soon do you think your company will be launching AV over IP? Is it doing installs now? Is it within the next 90 days you'll be doing your first install? You see projects 90 days to 6 months, 6 months to a year, or currently you have no plans. We'd love it if you'd kind of give us some feedback so we all know where the audience is, because that helps us gauge what we need to talk about and how we need to talk about it. I'm going to get a sip of water. Got about 34% of you have voted, so please engage here so we can kind of focus the rest of this. Oh, I love it. Guilt works so well. It just popped up to like 80%. I don't think my mother ever understood how guilt worked as well as it did. But all right, so it's a couple more stragglers here. Let's get them in. I want everybody to get a voice. Great, thanks. I'm going to share the results with you now. So interesting. I mean, you know that we have bet a lot of our future as a company on AV over IP, and 75% of you have a plan to do some form of AV over IP, whether you're doing it now or whether you're going to do it within the next 12 months. That's great. For those of you who don't have plans to do it, great. When you're ready, we're here for you. So,
Chris, this is interesting because it's a much higher percentage of doing install nows on this afternoon class from the webinar we did this morning. That's interesting.
36. Absolutely, 36 is.
Doing IP projects right now. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Well, maybe we can learn some things from them.
That's right.
So let's talk a little bit about the HDbridge3000 and why we think this is really a revolutionary product. First, I'm going to tell you that we launched this product. We're 2 weeks shy of the 1-year anniversary. This product, while it's not our #1 selling product, still the HDbridge3000 family is still our #1 product family line in terms of total unit sales. This product has been adopted in its first year faster than any other product we've had, which is I think says a lot for the sophistication of our integrators, because this is really an upsized product, right? So when you look at it, one of the benefits is that it's completely customizable, and it's customizable from an input standpoint, it's customizable from an output standpoint. So when you think about high density encoding and modulation, this will do up to 72 channels of HD by itself. It'll do up to 24 channels of SD in a 3RU bundle, right? It's 3RU rack space. And the great part is you can mix and match by the way it's configured however you want. You can have a set of SD and a set of HD channels managed by the same architecture, by the same chassis. On top of that, you don't have to populate the whole thing. You can populate just what you need and add to it over time. And it has this incredible benefit of doing simultaneous RF and IP distribution. So you could be doing RF only, you could be doing IP only with this, or you could be doing a hybrid of IP and RF. And when we talk about RF, keep in mind we're talking about almost anywhere in the world. So Europe primarily in North America. So we've got QAM in North America. We have DVB-T, DVB-C for our friends in Europe to use this product, and we sell a lot of this over there, which is it's great. So you're looking at 12 individual media modules. You can kind of see them stacked up there. The center, the very center, is actually the command module, and you could put any type of source, almost any type of source you want in there. We accept component, composite, HDSDI, and HDMI in this unit. So regardless of what your source is, we've got you covered, and we're going to delve into some examples of how that really benefits you as an end user and integrator down the road. So we've got unencrypted. We talked about this a little bit already, the inputs. Each one of these media modules is independent, and if it's an HD media module, it will handle 2 sources. If it's a standard def 480i or standard def media module, it will handle up to 6 sources at one time. The real power of this is there's a lot of hot swappable components, which means you don't have to power it down to work on it. So I can swap out the power supplies. You can see there are 2 power supplies. It runs perfectly fine on one power supply. The other one is sitting there waiting in case it's needed. It's easily just you push a thumb down, pull it out, replace it. So it's hot swappable, meaning very easy to do, which helps you with truck rolls. The cooling fans, there are 4 cooling fans, industrial grade, IP, kind of data center quality fans on the back of this that can be hot swapped. If somebody happens to break one or bump something into it and it cracks the housing on the fan, all you have to do is undo 4 screws, and there's a little plug, you unterminate it from the power, replace it, and it's 4 screws and you're back in and you're back up to speed. Again, 4 fans. We had this thing running for well over 2 weeks in some very hot temperatures in Orlando this year, and you could put your hand on it and couldn't tell it was even running, frankly. It was so cool. One of the neat things is each one of the media modules, so there are 12 media modules in here, are all hot swappable. And what's really neat about it is if you're doing a like-for-like swap, so if I'm going to replace an HDMI media module with an HDMI media module, an employee got disgruntled, jammed a screwdriver into the HDMI port and cracked it, all you have to do is undo 2 thumb screws, pull it out, replace it with the new one, thumb tighten the new screws down on the new one, plug the sources back in, and you're good to go, because the command module is going to remind that module that you replaced it with. It's going to pre-program it, if you will. It'll automatically program it and tell it exactly what it needs to be doing. So let's talk a little bit about architecture. Kind of moving left to right, you've got your sources, right? And they could be satellite receivers, digital signage players, could be a camera in the case of a broadcaster, all could be a computer, all kinds of different sources. And again, it's that Do I have component? Do I have composite? Do I have HDSDI inputs? I'm going to plug those directly into the media modules. I'm going to come out of the media module, and if I'm just doing RF, I'm going to come out using the coax spigot. And because this has a combiner already built into it, a lot of times you don't need any additional amplification. You can go straight out onto the plant using splitters or taps, depending on how sophisticated your infrastructure is, and go right to the TV. The TV has a QAM or a DVB-T, DVB-C tuner in it. You hit auto program and you're in business. So that's kind of the architecture from an RF standpoint. Again, one of the great parts about this is you may be doing RF today. You may need that client, may have a need for IP in the future. If that's the case, on the command module, there is an RJ45 jack. You plug an RJ45 cable into that, take it to your switch. You're going into your switch. That now is going to also allow you to just jack into that switch and access the HDbridge3000 for control and configuration using a web browsed-based session. And you're going out of that switch to Zyper MXEs or an IP decoder into the TV. And we'll get into decoding IP in a little bit. But it's the critical piece in this architecture is knowing that your switch has to be a smart switch. It could be a 1 gig switch, but it needs to be able to do IGMP snooping, which is Internet Group Management Protocol. So it has to be a smart switch, layer 2 switch, if you will, and you need to have access, and by access I mean administrative rights on that switch to provision not only the end use, but the flow of content through it. So those are two things when you start to think about IP you absolutely need to have when you're provisioning, is you need to have a smart switch with IGMP snooping enabled, and you need to have administrative rights to that switch, or you're going to be dead, or have somebody on your staff who has those rights to that switch. So that's kind of the architecture. Wow, I get a bunch of questions. Let's see. Somebody says, I voted no plans, but I didn't mean that. I grabbed the wrong button. That's all right. We'll forgive you for that one. You get one bad with us. And then, let's see. I'm going to click on some of these questions and see, do you have a centralized management platform for these products? So the first answer to that is the RF combined RF IP products have a command. The command and management sits right on top of the box itself, and it's a web-initiated session. So any of the HDbridge ZeeVee Pro products, that's built right into the box, as well as the MXE. Once you get beyond that, you're starting to switch IP, and we have a whole class about that in a whole other session. Once you start to switch IP, we have a management platform that connects to the network and helps you manage the switching process, and frankly runs on what we call Maestro Z. So all these boxes, all the RF stuff works on Maestro, and then Maestro Z is the platform for the IP, the upper end IP switched products. So yes, we do have one of those. Let's see. Let me get to the next question. Can you distinguish between AV over IP and SMPTE IP protocols such as, oh wow, how much time do we have? And what I'm going to ask is I've got your information who answered this, and I'd like to take that one offline because that might, there's some unique encapsulations that you pointed out, and it's a little more drawn out question that I'm really not prepared to dig in today, or we're going to go way over time. But I've got your question, I've got your contact information. I will get you your answer offline, either in an email or we'll call you. What other manufacturer products are you compatible with? Roy, any idea? I'm kind of stuck on that one.
That's almost a segue into the time when we start looking at endpoints.
Yeah, so that is a good, when you talk about IP switching, almost any switch, any Ethernet, off-the-shelf Ethernet switch, and that's the magic of what we're doing with all of our products, is Netgear, Cisco, HP, Dell. From that standpoint, from a switch standpoint, absolutely. And if that didn't answer your question, Roger, feel free to jump back in. How are the configurations backed up? Are there multiple local backups? There are not at this time on the HDbridge3000 a backup program, but it is, you could do screen grabs to document. You could print out a troubleshooting report, which will also allow us to document everything you've got going on there. 2 ways to do that, but at this point, there's not a multiple backup. we are working on our IP products of having a redundant IP management platform capability that will give you then that backup. We're also working on it. You'll be able to export your configuration. We actually had a meeting about that this morning, and it's coming down the pike on the Zyper MP, which is the more sophisticated switching control.
Yeah, Roger says he was referring to endpoints, so we'll touch that in a few seconds. Yep.
Yeah, we'll get to that in 2 seconds. So good questions. Thank you, guys. That's great. This is the Maestro platform that runs the HDbridge3000. The great part about what we're doing here is these programs and these management platforms are so compatible and so easy to use that if you've used Maestro in an RF world, you're going to be able to use Maestro in a hybrid RF IP world, and you're also going to be able to use with very, very little training. You know, there's never a no training thing, right? You're upgrading your system, you're doing a whole lot of things. There's going to be some differences, but once you've used one Maestro platform, you'll be easily able to jump to the second Maestro platform without any issues. It's all tab driven. That's one of the great parts about it. You know, you're just swapping out, you know, what tab you want to be working on, and it's not programming. You're not writing code. You're just configuring. And I'll give you an example. You can see on the screen that's closest to you. There's the 45 dBmV, which is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th column over from the left. If you want to set the power output of each channel, all you have to do is push down on that arrow, and it's going to give you all your choices from 45 dBmV all the way down to 25 in 1 dB increments. If you wanted to set the entire chassis to the same dB output for the entire installation, because once you log into Maestro, you can manage all your boxes. You can see it says I'm connected to 21, I'm not connected to 2. If I were to hit that refresh button up in the upper left, it would show all 23 ZeeVee units that are connected. If you wanted to control the power output, RF power output on all 23 of those boxes, you'd set the set all button, put it to 45, and all of them would change to 45. So that's how simple this is. Simple configuration, but incredibly powerful management capability, all in a web browse session, a web-initiated browsing session. And it sits right on top of the box. So there's no software. You can use any Safari, Firefox, you know, any of those really work great. Chrome works good. We tend to stay away from the Microsoft products because they're a heavy overhead product. So with that, I'm going to throw it back to Roy and let him talk a little bit about decoding IP signals.
Yeah, this kind of answers Roger's question about, so now we've got IP sitting on the system, on the network. Now, how do we decode it? What do we do with it at the other end? Well, right now, you've got a couple of options. ZeeVee has a device called the ZeeVee MXE. This is a really, really neat device. And by the way, that picture makes it look like it's huge. It's 4 inches square, 3/4 of an inch thick. So it simply sits behind the television. And it includes a IR dongle for receiving the IR signal. And it also comes with a programmable remote control. Now, why does it need a remote control? Because when this device is hooked up to your system, it acts like a television TV tuner. So first of all, you build the system, you connect everything together, you go into Maestro, you hit a couple of tabs, and it auto-discovers all the sources. And it sets up the channel lineup for as many sources as you're sending. It supports 3 IP formats. Regular H.264, which it doesn't use a lot of bandwidth, as we all know, so you can put a whole bunch of H.264 channels on a 1 gig network. And it supports MPEG-2. Now, MPEG-2 is much better video quality, but it tends to use more bandwidth, so you've got to kind of be careful depending on the size of the network. And it also supports MPEG-4, and there are even other other IP formats that it supports. Like I said, the remote control is programmable. Now, where does this product make sense? I'll give you a really good example. In a school where you've had teachers that for 40 years have been pointing a remote control at a television to change channels, this is exactly the same thing, but it's IP. They simply take the remote control, they point it at the TV, go to channel 9, and watch the principal's address in the morning. How about an assisted living facility where you've got people that, if you think you're going to put an app on their phone or give them an iPad to control what they're watching, good luck with that. No, they're going to take that giant remote control that they bought at the drugstore that has the buttons the size of quarters, and they're going to point it at the TV, and they're going to change channels like they always have but the infrastructure is IP. There's also other ways to decode the signal. At Infocom, we had the latest and greatest LG TV with their Web OS system. We put our software on that TV, and that TV acted just like a media experience engine or an MXE. And it was pretty cool because we had a standard TV above it using an MXE and the LG TV below it, and they both operated exactly the same. We're going to see more and more and more televisions and monitors with this capability. And lastly, you could put a VLC on a laptop. This works in studios, it works in schools, where you've got folks that might not have access to a panel or a television, but they have their laptop with them and they want to watch the content. A simple VLC placed on their laptop, and they're watching the content just like you would off of a screen or a TV. So I hope that answers the question about how do you decode these signals.
Yeah, Roy, I think one other thing to point out and to kind of fully answer Roger's question is it is an IP standardized format. So almost any IP decoder is going to work with it. And I'm not going to mention other people's brand names because I want you to buy ours. But we know the big boys out there, and we totally are interoperable with the big boys in terms of the IP decoders. So, you know, it is an IP standard signal, and that's our goal, is to make this stuff less proprietary and more, you know, more usable for everybody.
And you just answered another question that just came in, asking if our technology is proprietary, and no, it's not. Even going back to RF, we try not to reinvent the wheel. We try to use standard components and standard technology. When we developed RF HD modulation, we went with QAM, which is exactly the same system the cable company has been using to deliver HD content to folks' homes. Same thing with this. This is basic IT technology. We didn't want to reinvent the wheel. It is not proprietary. Let's move on. We have features that our HD products offer. The ZeeVee Pro, the 2000 products, and the 3000 products offer these three features. And I call them three free features. And I'm here to tell you that these are great closing tools. If you're working with a client and you need something to kind of push the project over the edge, these features sometimes help. The first one is ZeeVee Show. All HD products have a built-in digital signage player, which we call ZeeVee Show. So for instance, if you're looking at a 3000 with 12 HD media modules, you've got 12 digital signage channels besides the 24 broadcast channels. That's amazing. In the 2000 series, if you're using it in a sports bar, a health club, there are folks out there that are using these digital signage channels for announcements. You know, free chicken wings on Wednesday, or some of them are actually selling advertising in the health clubs on these channels. Originally, it was developed simply for scheduling at assisted living facilities and in college dormitories. But folks have taken it to the nth degree. You got a picture there on the screen in Vegas of a Budweiser event that went on at one of the hotels, and they used the ZeeVee Show to put Budweiser logo and Budweiser advertising up on the screens. So ZeeVee Show is a real exciting product. It's included in all the HD devices. Next up is ZeeVee EAS, Emergency Alert System. Currently, it's not required by any type of code or law, but I just recently had a meeting with some security folks, and they're telling me that in the not too distant future, you're going to see a requirement that any facility that has more than 50 people occupancy is going to require some type of an emergency alert system. Once again, ZeeVee's got you covered. Built into all of the devices is EAS. Now, the nice thing about our EAS is if you post an emergency alert, it doesn't do a chyron. It takes over the entire screen. I've seen EAS systems that only do a chyron, and if you're watching Fox News, there's already 4 chyrons running down at the bottom, and you're never going to know that tornado's coming. So this takes over the entire screen. Secondly, we've partitioned this system so that you can allow 10 administrators access to just this part of Maestro. Originally, when we first introduced it, you had to open Maestro up to everybody. And that was a problem because you're going to get somebody in there and they're going to see, whoa, it's only at 25 dB, let's crank this up to 45. And they're going to mess around with your programming. Now they can't. The programming side stays yours, and you can add 10 administrators. We also offer what is called Monroe Electronics EAS. Monroe is the national company where you put an antenna on the roof, you install the OneNet EAS box in the system, and this is a national system. Should the weather forecasters need to alert everybody in a state, that would alert anybody that's watching the televisions that hooked up to that ZeeVee head end. So we offer it two ways: a local system called ZeeVee EAS and a national system working with Monroe called OneNet. And lastly is set-top box control. One of the things we try to do at ZeeVee is lessen truck rolls. Truck rolls are a killer financially. Every time that truck leaves the barn, it's costing you hundreds of dollars. And we know that. So one of the things we've done is created a system called ZeeVee set-top box control, which allows you to remotely manage the entire ZeeVee head end. And it gets better. If you're using DirecTV H25 satellite receivers, we also manage them. We have a tremendous relationship with DirecTV. They've given us all the codes to the H25. We've incorporated them into Maestro. So now you can control the entire head end. And I'll give you an example of how that works. You've got an assisted living facility Saturday night, 8 o'clock, they lose the Lawrence Welk show. That's not good. You can literally VPN into the head end and possibly move channels around and get that Lawrence Welk show back up and running. Maybe you shut down the home shopping network for a few hours and put the Lawrence Welk channel into that slot. And you can always go there and fix it on Monday if it's something wrong with the satellite or the receivers or whatever. But it allows you remotely to manage this entire head end, which is just a great feature.
Great. So before we get to our next poll question, there is one thing I wanted to just add on to what Roy was talking about with some of these features. In the ZeeVee Show feature, I feel the need to really point out that it is available on our RF-only products. So if you're doing any kind of just RF, whether it be DVB-T or QAM, DVB-C or QAM, that ZeeVee Show feature is there. The minute you start to do IP and RF, you lose that feature in the media modules only because there's just only so much processing power that card can do. I also want to address another real quick question that somebody asked, and there's this question of, are there any plans to support HDCP, or is that not really possible? So first off, I'll tell you that on a lot of our IP products, we do manage the HDCP handshake. But in an RF world where we are re-encoding or re-encoding and then de-encoding on the other end with the TV, it's not allowed by the HDMI license that we've signed. We signed a license to the HDMI consortium. We're a certified HDMI user. And because we've signed that, we signed an agreement that says we will never strip HDCP off of somebody's content. And so anybody who tells you they've got a license that allows them to switch, to strip HDCP, they're flat out not telling you the truth. There are other words I could use, but I won't. So to answer your question, on our RF products, we don't do it because it's not allowed by an agreement we've signed with the HDMI consortium. In our IP products, we are allowed to manage that handshake, the keys. And so we do manage the handshake at both ends. Plus, on top of that, we have some level of encryption between encode and decode, and that's really what they're after. So let's go to poll question number 2. And poll question number 2 is, if you would, do me a favor, and we've kind of covered a lot of the functionality of the HDbridge3000. If you pick 2 that you feel of those features we talked about, the flexibility of the platform, the redundancy and hot swappable components, the ability to kind of future-proof your install by adding IP, adding H.264, adding 4K, all of which are features that are coming down the pike. In a couple weeks, you're going to hear about us launching an H.264 media module for this, or simultaneous RF and IP output. What of those are important to you and important to your customers? If you help us kind of understand and tailor some more of this training as we go along, you got about 38% of you, 40% of you are voted now. There we go, that guilt thing. As soon as you point out how many people haven't voted, those people jump on. and we're at 50. I'd love to get to like 70% before I close it out. So I'm going to take a sip of water and give you all a couple more seconds. All right, and with that, we've hit the magic 70. Oh, one more second. I might get above 70. All right, thank you, guys. Let's share those results of those. You know, you've said the flexibility of the platform is important. The redundant hot swappable components, maybe a little less important. That might have something to do with our reliability, so it's not as important to you because our products are so reliable. I'm hoping that's why you answered that way. Future-proofing, 62% of you said that was one of your top two. And that simultaneous RF and IP is really important to 58% of you. So that's some great feedback. Appreciate it. So with that, let's talk about how the product is being used and where it's being used and where we see some of our biggest. There are probably 8 or 9 areas that and we're not going to cover all 8 or 9 in a lot of detail. But let's talk first about healthcare. And this is, you know, when you start talking about the HDbridge3000 being deployed in healthcare, where is it being deployed? Primarily in hospitals and dialysis centers. Those are our 2 largest subsegments of healthcare. And when you think about it, those are both places where a lot of people are spending a lot of time. If you've been fortunate enough not to have kidney failure or know anybody who's had kidney failure, good for you and good, you keep it up. But if you've had the misfortune of having bad kidneys, you know you're spending hours and hours, like 10s, 20 hours a week in a chair at a dialysis machine. Those people have, you know, the need to be entertained, and that's the big piece of what this is doing. And so let's talk about what are they doing with it. First off, patient and waiting room entertainment in hospitals is big. You know, taking the patient's mind off of what they're there for, engaging them in something that's going to distract them, if you will. Patient education. We have, and this is really the role of either additional channels or ZeeVee show. I'll give you 2 examples. One, we have a hospital in California that is set aside 12 channels just for their individual departments to use and to communicate and to put training videos on. And what they're doing is they're using the V chip built in the TV. The Bridge3000 has the capability to leverage that V chip, which you'll remember is parental control. So what they'll do is they'll set all of their TVs to TVG, and all of the content that they don't want anybody to see, they give a PG-13 rating to. So no TV besides the ones that are in staff offices can see that content because the V chip in the TV is blocking it. But they've got the cardiology department, they've got the inpatient people, they've got the physical therapy people. They all have their own videos, and they're all training videos they're putting up. Another incredible use in the power of ZeeVee show, there's a chain of hospitals in Texas. They're all mostly rural, and they're all birthing hospitals. They have taken ZeeVee show, and they used to make this, they made a DVD at one point, and it was how to, you know, they had this problem where newborns were coming back within a couple weeks sick because people weren't practicing proper handling and caring and hygiene and things like that around these infants. And so they took that DVD and they were mailing it out weeks in advance. It did not have a meaningful impact on their numbers. They created a ZeeVee show channel, and they put that DVD in there. And when a mother checks in and a father checks in, the nurse or the attending, whoever's checking them in, and takes them to their room, turns to the TV and says, "We'd like you to watch this short 5-minute video." And they won't tell us because of HIPAA. They don't think they can share this with us. But they have a significant decrease in infants coming back with sicknesses because of that video being on. So a great use, a great powerful use. Talked about departmental communications. They're also using it for digital signage. So what and how is the unit itself being used? We're seeing primarily RF distribution of content. We have started to see some IP distribution. We've had 2 hospitals just in the last year that built new wings. The old wing was all coax cable. The new wing is twisted pair, not twisted pair, is category cabling. So now what they've got through this one unit is the ability to add channels and add them in IP to that IP network. So they're doing both simultaneous. So who's using it? St. Joe's, I'm going to give you just 3 or 4 names. St. Joe's brand new hospital in Denver, Colorado is using it. Children's Hospital in Boston is using it. And we just did a hospital in San Bernardino. And that's one of the ones that's doing both IP and RF out. So great utilization. There are hospitals all over this country that have got old analog modulation that needs to be upgraded into HD. In a lot of cases, it's RF or IP. Broadcasters and video production. this is the Bridge 3000 has been huge with broadcasters, and you saw some of the logos earlier, CBS, NBC, and video production houses. So anybody involved in editing and video, content creation. And there are literally thousands of video content creation companies out there. What are they doing with it? They're moving video content through the workflow. So when you think about from camera to end and everything that goes on in between, confidence monitoring, editing, all those things, we give you that capability in the 3000 through either HDSDI connections, HDMI connections, whatever you're using, to take that content, interrupt it. We hand you a reclocked, reamplified, in the case of HDSDI, loop through, so you could pass it right along into the editing bays and things like that. But you look at who needs, newsroom editors are constantly monitoring their competition. They're constantly monitoring their own productions to see if our helicopter shot is as good as their helicopter shot. You get editors and desk assignment reporters. You get confidence monitoring. You get the marketing people who want to make sure the commercials are running right and that their own promotions look good. So a lot of, applications within the video production group and, interdepartmental communications. We have a TV station in Oklahoma that schedules and has the schedule of all their remote trucks and remote vans using ZeeVee Show. So you can see where those assets are at any given point in time and if they need to reallocate them. So how is it being used? These are probably our biggest IP users. They are absolutely using RF because they all have old SMA TV systems running around inside them. Just kind of old coax cabling. But more and more, they're doing a lot of IP distribution inside these facilities. This one kind of bugs me that I even have to talk about it, but we're all very well aware of what happened to that poor cameraman and the anchor woman in Virginia a couple of years ago, where they were shot dead by a crazed person. EAS is a big local EAS is a big selling point to broadcasters and to production facilities. They've got fans, they've got fanatics. Their ability to say, crazy person in parking lot, shelter in place, is hugely important to them. And HDSDI plays a big role with this group of people because that's how the content is coming in, whether it's from a switching panel or a camera, it's coming in HDSDI format. So we've got you covered when it comes to that. So that's what I'm going to talk about, and then Roy's going to cover a couple real quick. Educators, universities in K through 12. So, then your question is who's left in that world? And honestly, we have deployments all over the place in both of these universes. What are they doing? The biggest market for us has been dorm room and public space entertainment and education. So that's where we cut our teeth. About 4 years ago, we started doing a lot of dorm rooms, a lot of public space in universities. So they're pushing cable TV or satellite, direct TV content to the dorm room or to public spaces. In K through 12, when I was a kid, the announcements were done by the principal or a secretary, and she just read them off into a microphone. Every school I go into, which is phenomenal, they all have these production facilities. And these kids are producing news shows, they're producing the announcements, they're putting them on using HD products, using ZeeVee products to distribute them. I pointed you out earlier the NTNU case study. It's on our website. You really should look at it. They are doing an amazing job of making almost every lecture available in any place on that campus. So lecture and classroom content distribution. My alma mater, Michigan State's doing it that way. I could sit here and name colleges all day long. We just sold a bunch of units to University of Kansas. And digital signage is the other big deployment that's being done at universities. When we look at how RF and IP distribution, early on, a lot of RF, but IP has started to really gain headway with this group. The MXE for local TV control, as Roy talked about in schools, is a really big deal. Here again, sadly, we're all Virginia Tech. We all know what happened there in the school in Oregon University. Local EAS gives these people a lot of confidence and gives them the ability to instantly communicate to the entire campus. So that's a huge potential use for them and a sales point for our products. That local capability to insert a local message is giant to these people, and has the potential to save lives. So that, I'm going to throw it back to Roy, and he can tell you about some of the other places.
Well, certainly senior housing is a huge market. Currently 10,000 people a day are turning 65, and 100 people a day are turning 100. So there's an amazing need for senior housing. In senior housing, you got to keep it simple. They really don't want set-top boxes. They really don't want anything more than the ability to point a remote control at a television and change a channel. And that's where our IP or our RF product come into play. But more importantly, the 3000, because it offers you both RF and IP, is being used a lot because a lot of these senior housing facilities are adding on. We have one in the Midwest that had 300 rooms, and they just added on 100 rooms. The 300 rooms are all coax. The 100 rooms are all Cat X wire. So they're using a 3000 to send simultaneous Cat and, simultaneous IP and RF. The senior housing is a huge market. Obviously, sports bars and restaurants. I'll talk about cutting our eye teeth. This is the product that's really been our bread and butter for nearly the entire time that ZeeVee has been in business. Sports bars want reliability. An RF-based system, simple coax with no endpoints, is about the most reliable system, the most cost-effective system you're going to have in a sports bar. We do all of the Twin Peak restaurants, for instance, and I had a conversation with them a couple months ago where they were thinking about an IP solution, and I suggested to them that they have 70 televisions in each of their restaurants. With an endpoint at each TV, they have 70 potential points of failure. With an RF system, they're just simply running an F connected to the back of the television. Very, very reliable, very cost effective. And plus, by using the 2000 product rather than the 3000, they're using four channel modulators. Should one of them fail, they've still got 12 channels. So they have 4 times redundancy in that situation. And fitness centers. Fitness centers have a unique situation happening currently. For instance, many fitness centers used cable as their video source. And cable, up until recently, had what we called organic channels. You simply took a piece of wire from a plate in the wall, plugged it into the back of a TV, and you got 40, 50, 60 channels. We called them organic channels. Well, the cable systems have a problem. They don't have enough bandwidth. So they're taking a lot of these, what we call organic channels, they're compressing them, and they're requiring every television to have a small set-top box. Well, obviously, that doesn't work in a fitness center. You can't have a set-top box with a handheld remote control at a piece of exercise equipment. So what they're doing is they're going backwards. They're putting a whole bunch of cable boxes in a closet, and they're using ZeeVee modulators to recreate those organic channels and distribute them to the equipment. I'm not going to get too deep into this, but if you have the opportunity to work with fitness centers and this comes up, give me a call. I'm well versed in this. We've done probably hundreds of these fitness centers now, helping them out with this cable problem that they have.
Yeah, let's do a little name dropping, right? We're in almost every 24-hour fitness. We're in a vast majority of the Lifetime fitnesses where if you walk in, you'll see a product up there doing entertainment, and we're the ones encoding that product for a company that we are very close partners with, Clubcom. So, you know, you walk into almost any of the large chain health clubs, and we're a big, big player there.
That's right. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Clubcom. Churches, mega churches especially. These churches have large-scale video control boards, and they require SDI. Those boards are usually outputting HD SDI, and we've got you covered. We've got the 2920, which is a product that we developed about a year ago. It's been amazingly successful. It's in the 2000 series, 2 channels, SDI input, and it outputs QAM and IP if you need it. So the mega churches are important. Also, some of these really big facilities could use our fiber-based products. Our fiber-based products have 0 latency or near 0 latency, no compression. If you've got giant screens on both sides of the pastor, it's pretty important that the latency issue is dealt with. And our fiber-based and even our cat-based products have extreme low latency. So they're used extensively in that type of situation. And lastly, stadiums. Obviously, stadiums have tremendous long lengths of run. Coax has no limit to the length of run. You can run coax miles with proper engineering, amplifiers, and whatnot. And certainly our fiber-based products, we can run 99 miles. That's what we say. We probably can run it longer than that over fiber backbone. The nice thing about some of our products is not only are they distributing video over long lengths, they're also giving you a 1 gigabit Ethernet port at the other end. So if you have a need for that, maybe for Wi-Fi or maybe for some other reason, we're also going to supply a 1 gigabit Ethernet port at the end of these long runs. We found that in stadiums, this becomes very helpful.
So we've given you some ideas on where it's being used and where you can begin to sell this stuff and why, how they're using it, right? We've talked about senior housing, education areas, health, hospitals, dialysis centers. These places are all over every community, and there's opportunities out there to help them upgrade their facilities. One last thing, well, a couple last things we're going to hit on because we're trying to respect that 1 hour here. You hear a lot of companies talk about their support, and when we talk about our support, I've never, and I have nothing to do with support. Melanie runs our support team. You got Michael, you got Randy, all these great people in our support group. And what's amazing to me is I never hear bad stories. I hear great, great stories. And this quote, and I'm not going to read it to you word for word, but it gets to the gist of what we believe when it comes to support. And this is by the way, this quote came from one of the largest integration companies in the world. And it came from one of their engineers. And he said, look, the bottom line was he was blown away by not only will we support our own products, but we helped him figure out that it was really not, it was a network issue, and that we dug into the environment. We didn't just deal with our box and say, no, our box is running right. We looked at the entire ecosystem and helped him troubleshoot it. And that's, that's what we're all about. We're all about making it work for you, your end user, your integrator. If you're a DirecTV distributor, or a DirecTV reseller, we're all about making that environment work for you. So we do like to toot that horn a little bit because in the sales guys, we can do it because we get absolutely nothing to do with it, right? And I will tell you, those of you who know me and have met me, I'm only 5'8", I'm not a big guy. I had this big bear of a man at Infocom this year come up and give me this huge hug, thanking me for some support that we gave him. And it was kind of almost like, oh, I don't even know you, and you're hugging me over our support. So that tells you how important it is to some people. And, obviously we value it, and we spend a lot of energy and effort against that. And I hope you never have to experience it, but if you do, we're there for you. And when I say that, I mean, we're there on the pre-install side, we're on the pre-sale side, we're there after you've done the install. We're not just there when you have a problem. We're there to help you avoid problems before you go to do your install. We're happy to help you with questions. And, we tell people, if you've got a big install coming up, engage us before, because we can help you out and support you from that standpoint. So with that, let's go to our last question. And our last poll question is, we like to know about, what are you interested in learning more about? How to sell ZeeVee products, how to switch HD over an IP network. Do you need more training and support and knowledge on how to implement AV over IP? Training on Maestro, would you like to see some more training on Maestro Z? And then, how to sell against matrix switches and HDbridge3000 products. So, this one's got everybody's interest. Everybody's peaked on this one, so we're getting there quickly. He says that, and then they stop. A couple more people fill it out, because this helps us gauge what do we do next, and what do we need to help you with, and how do we reach out. I mean, we are a big training company. We believe in training people on our products and on things in general. I mean, obviously, technical training on AV over IP is more about it's more about IP, not as much about ZeeVee. So let's close the poll. Thank you, guys. We're right at 70%. That's cool. Share the results. I love it. The biggest response was, you want to learn more about AV over IP, and that is the perfect segue. I'm not saying it was a self-serving question, but it might have been a little bit of a self-serving question. And the whole thing, and I'm going to hide the results now, because that leads perfectly into my next slide, if I can get it to come up. We have invested in getting 2 courses certified for continuing credits, right, for RUs at Infocom. One is an IP class, and it is all about doing AV over IP. It's not about ZeeVee. It's not about ZeeVee products. You're going to get your hands on some ZeeVee products, but it's all about, what do you need to know about how to configure an IGMP switch? How do you design, what's a good practice when designing IP? It is a 6-hour course that really ends up being about 5. Here are some quotes from some people who've actually attended the course. Thanks once again. You guys have been one of the best presenters I've had the pleasure to being sat in front of such breath of fresh air in the world of AV. And somebody else said, upon completion of the training, I found myself with a much better understanding of the networking and where devices and protocols reside in the OSI 7-layer model. We spend a lot of time covering that OSI 7-layer model. The class splits into two sections, very distinct sections. One is kind of that classroom training, right? Understanding a design, working on it. It's not lecture, right? There's a lot of get up, get active. We make you do some design work. We make you describe some things. We make you design a network. And then the second half of the class, we literally unbox a bunch of AV over IP equipment, hand it to you with a switch, encoders, decoders, screens, and a management platform and say, make it work. So some upcoming dates: Dallas, September 12th and 13th. And I got to tell you, when we mentioned this morning, 3 people literally got off the web and signed up for classes there. So these classes are limited to 15 people. They're not large classes, so they're real hands-on, real intimate. So Dallas, September 11th and 12th, Houston, the 13th and 14th. We've got some in London coming up, the 13th and 14th of September, and November 15th and 16th. These classes fill up quickly, okay? And I'll be straight up front with you. We do charge for the class because it's not about ZeeVee. It's about getting CTS credits for you and getting your renewal capability, and it's about IP. It's not about ZeeVee products. So that's why we charge, because there's a cost for us to put these on. And in some cases, you know, it can be pretty significant. We invest in a trainer, a lot of other things. So with that, where are we? We got 4 minutes for questions. No, honestly, I know both Roy and I thank you very much for your time today. We do have a couple more questions. Let's see. One, as a distribution point, selling the products is key to us. Okay? And you know what? I'll back that up a little bit. Earlier you heard me say, until you sell something, we don't sell anything. I know Roy spends a lot of time on the road. I spend a lot of time on the road. And I would say at least 40% of my time is spent traveling with integrators, talking to their end users. We are more than happy to do that, whether you're a distributor talking to an integrator or a reseller, or whether you're a reseller integrator talking to an end user. We're happy to support you in that sales process, because again, until you sell something, we don't sell a single thing. Let's see, did you mention direct streaming to LG? Sorry, I missed it. Yes, Art, you must have missed it. Art's one of our employees, so I can give him a little grief. We do, and it's a great product, and it is. We have a page on our website that tells you all of the models that currently have the WebOS capability that we integrate with an LG. The WebOS runs on top of the LG monitor, LG screen, and it completely decodes IP products and makes it painless. Auto discovers everything. You can do. There's a lot of great capability, from building a channel guide, adding logos to channels, things like that, all that happen with inside that WebOS. It's really neat. All right. Any other questions?
No, I think we covered them all. Once again, thanks everybody for spending time with us. Greatly appreciated.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call, whether you need some pre-sale support from our sales team or our technical team. That's what we are here for. We're here to help you become more successful, sell more products, because again, you know, until you sell something, we don't sell a single thing. So thank you for your time today. Appreciate it. We will make this webinar available online on our YouTube channel, so you'll be able to see that probably by Monday. It'll be up there. So if you got other people you want to see, let them know, point them to that, our YouTube channel, and they'll be able to see this webinar in its entirety there. Thank you again very much for your time.